I'm Tony Vieira, and I'm representing the Westport Business to Business along with Patrick from WPRI and Lisa, who is at the table out front. If you haven't got those materials, you sure want to get them. One of the members of Westport Business to Business, sitting in the back row there with her husband, is Betty Mullins. Betty, would you stand, please? Betty represents Bay Coast. Bay Coast is a co-sponsor with Business to Business this evening. And we appreciate and look forward to working with this partnership going forward on some other sponsorships in the next few months. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I think it's appropriate when we're in the house that all the taxpayers just built, that they talk to the person who's responsible for it. So let's have a welcome to our Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Auburn.
Well, good evening, everyone, and I want to welcome you to our beautiful new middle high school, and I hope everybody has a terrific night tonight. You know, 5 or 6 years ago when the start of the school came about, one of the things that was abundantly clear was that this school was going to be built not simply for the middle and high school students, but in fact that this would be a community resource. And I'm so proud to have Mr. Vieira choose here as our place to meet the candidates. You know, it's in this day and age of a lot of acrimony politically. You know, I like to remind people, and I wrote it down. I tried to remember it, but I guess I'm getting too old now. So, but Plato once said that the price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. And I think it's really important for us here in Westport to have a lot of discourse with you know, everything that is going on. As we know, there are changes in the environment. There's certainly changes in technology. I spoke just a few minutes ago about the mental health issues that have been plaguing not only our students, but our families as well. So, you know, what we're hoping to do here in Westport at our schools is to be a resource. And, you know, in speaking with Mr. Cole a few minutes ago, we were talking about the possibility of having a monthly sort of, you know, meeting with the community and on different topics that they feel is important. So, you know, I just want to, I can't say it enough. I want to thank you very much. Our students have responded to this building in a way that really words can't describe. Yesterday, our girls basketball team had a big victory, and they are going up to, absolutely. I remind people, 315 high school students, we are now in the Elite Eight, and we'll be playing against Sutton High School up in Sutton. So Friday I'll be leaving here at 3:30 for a very long trip, but it's going to be a great trip. And one of the things that every visiting team seems to say, the coaches seem to say, is the energy in this building is off the charts, and it absolutely is. You know, if you came here yesterday, I mean, we've got Henry in the back. Henry, big wave over there. Henry's been handling, if you've been watching us on TV, Henry's been the cameraman. We have our pep band. The pep band is bigger than it has been in years. Our teams are doing well, and there is just a general excitement, not only at our sporting events, but many of the other events that we have. Tomorrow, we will have District Attorney Quinn speaking to our junior and senior class. We thought it was appropriate that as they move into adulthood, it's important for them to know the law. So we're grateful to Attorney Quinn, and we're going to be having more community events here. So I want you to stay tuned. Please stay and look at our website. Check us out on our cable. I want to thank Irene Buck for all the work she does with the cable community. And please stay tuned and stay with us because, again, this may be a middle senior high school, but in fact, it is a community resource and we want the community in here as often as possible. So without further ado, I just want to thank you for all your support for our kids. We have terrific kids here in Westport, and I can't thank you enough for everything you do for them. So thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you, Tom. When I see them here, I can tell they're in red back there. We're supposed to wear red today as members of the Business to Business Executive Board, and Lisa and Patrick in the back of the room. So I want to really thank you for helping in getting this organized and typing up this material. When we're talking right now, I'd ask if the Board of Selectmen that are running, the 3 candidates, if you come up and sit in these seats, we're going to introduce you next. If you haven't picked up yet, though, Lisa and Patrick could pass out a form that looks like kind of a ballot, if you would. And the order that we're going tonight will follow the ballot. So if you're voting and you have some questions about different offices, these are the offices, these are the candidates that are running, and they're going to kind of present why they're running to you and why they like your vote. Then after that, we're going to open it, after they finish, we're going to open it up to question and answers, and then we'll proceed to that part in the program. There's also a question on the ballot. We'll address that as well. Does anybody need a copy of this? Okay, Patrick, would you mind grabbing a few? And if you keep your hands up, we'll try to make sure you all have it. I think it'll be a lot easier if you have this and you can work from that. And it'll also help the candidates, because as the third person here finishes for the selectmen, we'll then bring in the next group. And I think the next group is going to be, well, Peter's down in Florida, so Peter McGow won't be here tonight. He doesn't come in until tomorrow morning. But the town clerks, there's 2 people running for town clerks. You folks will be up next. So as these people go, you can come in and we'll move it along that way. We'll have questions at the end, though. So right now we're asking pretty much for statements and anything you want to address the crowd with. So there's a couple more folks with hands up if they need these sheets. We ran out? Sorry about that, folks. I'll do it from here. Okay. Well, that's a good problem to have, though, if we ran out. I'd like to start off with the Board of Selectmen. And first candidate is running for re-election. I don't know how many years, he could tell you that, but he's certainly been a fixture in town and certainly appreciate him. And I also appreciate the fact that you brought a guest with you tonight, and that's Jim Coyne. Where's Jim Coyne? Jim Coyne. Right there. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate you going. In coming here this evening, Jim's had some battles with health in the last few years, but he's up here still battling, and as a veteran and as a person who's done many, many interviews for people running for office and handle elections after, I'm really pleased to see you here this evening. And if you have a chance, if you've never met Jim, do so before you leave tonight. I think you'll enjoy that conversation. At that point, Mr. Willett, thank you.
Everybody hear me okay? All right, thank you. Thank you to the organizers for tonight's event. We appreciate being able to get the word out. I'm going to go easy on you folks. I only have a page and a half, so I'll just give you the quick bio. I'm here to ask for your vote in the upcoming election to allow me to remain as a member of the Select Board. Short bio. My family's been here for generations. Many served or worked for the town. Most are still here. My daughter in the back lives here. My mother, my aunt, 2 out of 3 of my sisters, and most importantly, my wife, Kim, is a townie, so I got that part covered, and we're deeply rooted within the town of Westport. We're both Westport High graduates. My community service began when I followed in my father's footsteps and became a Westport call firefighter as soon as I was old enough. Shortly thereafter, I worked on the snowplow crew in the highway department and later became a Westport Reserve police officer and served on the department for 19 years until becoming elected a selectman. I also served on numerous volunteer boards in town, including the Arts Cultural Council, Recreation Department, and Conservation Commission. I still work on a number of boards, including the Selectman's Rep to Serped for over 20 years, which the town utilizes for planning, the Economic Development Task Force, which I chair, the Infrastructure Oversight Committee, the Cable Advisory, Bike and Pedestrian Committee, to name a few. My niche has always been public safety, and I'm proud of some of my accomplishments, which include forming these committees and getting things done, most of which could not be accomplished without the support of the other Select Board members, Senator Mike Rodrigues, Representative Paul Schmidt, and volunteers who work very hard for our town. I can't stress that enough. Volunteers really do a lot to help this town. That's the reason why I want to continue to serve you. We have more work to do, including bringing in water and sewer while trying to maintain our character in town, addressing the old high school, and defending attempts to institute over-the-top state regulations, to just name a few. In summary, I ask for your vote to allow me to keep on doing what I'm doing. Please spread the word to re-elect Willett. Thank you.
Chris.
Good evening. First of all, I did want to say thank you very much to the organizers and the sponsors of this event. My name is Christopher Thrasher. I'm running for selectman here, and I've been told that the best way to start any kind of speech is with a quote from somebody else. So I've found one that I think might be somewhat appropriate for tonight, and that is, who am I? Why am I here? Now, some of you may recognize that. Those were the first words spoken on the vice presidential debate stage back in 1992 by Admiral James Stockdale, who was the independent Ross Perot's vice presidential running mate. And I think it's somewhat appropriate here because I'm sure many of you are wondering, who is this guy and why is he here? Well, I'll tell you, I'm a UMass Dartmouth graduate. I am currently in my final semester at UMass Law. I've had a background in public policy and nonprofit management. I'm no stranger to tight budgets and tough situations. Last April, I actually went to go cast my vote in the town election, and it was about 4:30 in the afternoon, and I noticed that no one was running for the Commissioner of Trust Funds position. So I decided to run an impromptu write-in campaign in between 4:30 and the time the polls closed. I got enough votes to be elected to that committee, and I've served in that capacity since. I'm running now to bring a balanced approach to the Board of Selectmen. I believe in fiscal responsibility, and that does not mean slashing and burning a town budget. What it means is finding the balance between providing the services that Westport needs and making sure that we limit the tax burden on Westport families. I believe in accountability and transparency, and we need to know exactly how our tax dollars are being spent. We need to know what revenue is coming in, what decisions are being made, how those decisions are being made, not to mention where and when those decisions are being made. And as selectman, I will do everything in my power to make sure that there's real transparency in our town government and that you have access to all the information that you need and want out of town hall. I believe in fresh ideas and creative solutions. I want to help balance the board by adding a new perspective and by finding creative ways to balance our budgets. I want to hear from you all about the issues that matter to you. I want to hear what you think needs to be done with the old high school, even what needs to be done with the roads in your neighborhood. I want to make sure that I listen to you as your representative, and that goes for before Election Day and after. As selectman, my door will always be open. My phone will always be on. Now, I just want to finish up by circling back to where I began tonight when I talked about Admiral Stockdale. Now, at the time of that debate, the Admiral was widely ridiculed for his performance. And unfortunately, when most people, if they remember him at all, they remember him as sort of a Saturday Night Live caricature. But I remember the Admiral for something very, very different. You see, the Admiral was a true American hero. He was actually a POW in Vietnam for more than 7 years. And what he was able to endure in his captivity was he embraced both the harshness of his situation along with a balance of healthy optimism. And that's given rise to what's appropriately enough known as the Stockdale paradox. And that is that you must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose. You must not confuse that with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be. Westport is home. It is where my lovely and beautiful better half, Ariana, and I want to raise our family. And right now, home is facing some significant challenges. I'm running with the discipline to face those harsh challenges head on, and with the faith that by applying fiscal responsibility, accountability, and transparency, and some fresh ideas and creative solutions, we can prevail in keeping Westport a very special place to live, and that's why I'm asking for your vote on April 11th. Thank you.
Next, and the last person that'll be in the selectmen's area, that's a key for the town clerks and also Board of Health. You'll be next, so as these gentlemen leave the stage, please come right up and we'll move this along. I'd like to introduce our third candidate. That's Manny Soers.
I too would like to thank the organizers and Tony for putting this gathering together. For those of you that don't know me, I am presently in a third year of a 5-year seat on the planning board. I've been operating a successful small business in town, in the neighboring town of Dartmouth for the last 35 years. And 3 years ago, with a lot of the issues facing the town, I figured it was time to try to give back to the town that I call home and my family calls home. and I want to continue raising my family in this home, my grandchildren and so forth. So I've been very fortunate since I've been elected to the planning board seat, and I had the opportunity to work on the Master Plan Review Committee, and we're presently sitting on the Economic Development Task Force for Route 6 and 177, and the Oversight Committee for Infrastructure on Route 6. I would just like to ask for your vote for selectmen so I could continue this work and move forward and try to, you know, I've been very fortunate to work with all of the boards in town and the planning board, and I think we've done a really good job, and we got a lot of work left, and I think being elected to selectmen, I can help that in the issues that we have moving forward with infrastructure and the environmental issues with the river. I kind of have a good handle on all of that stuff, and I'd like your vote so I could continue helping the town with that stuff. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Town clerk, candidates, and the Board of Health, please, too. Donna, from the Board of Health. When they're coming up, there were some questions about business to business. Are we still having breakfasts? Yes, we are. Not as many, because we're doing other activities. We're kind of representing our community for all businesses. And financially, we're not collecting membership right now. We may ask businesses to help us out, as Baycoast just did this evening. And we'll be doing it in a couple other events as we go forward. But it's really responding to what the business community is asking, and people that attend business to business will have breakfast, lunch, dinner, events, whatever, in response to what the community would be. I guess I've killed a little time, and now it's ready to listen to the town clerks. So first on the town clerk would be Kristen.
Hello, everyone. Ooh, it's loud. I'd like to begin with saying thank you to everyone who put this together, took the time to organize it, and to all of you for coming out tonight and getting to know us a little bit better. My name is Kristen Stinson. I go by Chris. I am currently the assistant town clerk, and I've spent the last couple of months learning the functions and processes of the office with Bernadette. I'm truly grateful to have her support in this as well. My career entails a significant amount of office and quasi-governmental experience, but my focus has always been towards customer service. It's important to me that people feel a sense of connection in the town. I think that positive experiences when you walk through the town hall are key to that, and if elected, this will be my goal for the office. I'm especially interested in this position because I would love to spend some time streamlining and updating procedures. My hope is that I will be able to help the town be more efficient and make things smoother for residents. All of that will be easier from the driver's seat than the passenger seat. As the clerk, I would also be the elections commissioner. I've been spending time learning the election procedures and researching related regulations. I feel confident that I would be able to oversee the elections successfully while maintaining the integrity of our town. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about me before the election, I'd ask you that maybe you follow my Facebook page and feel free to ask any questions there. Yeah, and that's about it. I really appreciate your time, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Kaylee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kaylee. I want to start off by saying a big thank you to Baycoast Bake and Westport Business to Business for putting this event on for all the candidates tonight. Thank you, everyone, for your support, for coming out and supporting all of us tonight. A little bit about myself. I was born in Somerset, and I moved to Westport in early 2016 when I met my husband. We reside on Old County Road on the Vieira family homestead, where in small part we carry on the Vieira family tradition of farming. In addition to raising animals and harvesting from the land, we spend a great deal of time fishing and enjoying the river and coastal waters this beautiful town has to offer. I have an accounting degree from the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, and 12 years' experience working as a bookkeeper and staff accountant. With my experience in both the private and nonprofit sector, 10 of which for a Massachusetts state-funded nonprofit, I feel that I am qualified and well-suited to perform the duties of this town office. I'm running for town clerk to help my community. I believe with my knowledge earned and eagerness to continue learning, I can help make improvements and upgrades to Westport Town Clerk, both current and accessible to and for all residents. As a resident of this town, there are issues that concern me. For example, the elections. I feel that so many polling locations is inefficient and quite frankly outrageous. I see no reason that all polling locations could not be combined to one location, such as this new middle high school that we stand in now, or the old high school that is not being used. Precincts can be kept the same, but vote in different parts of the building. This would eliminate the cost associated with running multiple buildings and has been done successfully in surrounding towns such as Somerset and Swansea. Another is the Beach Pass. There is absolutely no reason that they cannot become an online application reviewed and cross-referenced electronically within the town offices. If all information checks out, issue the pass. This could apply to other licensing as well. When researching how many passes were issued, I hit a wall. At the 2020 annual report, where is 21? Where is 2022? And why are they not available? Where is that information? Providing accurate information in a timely fashion is a responsibility of this town and of this office. Researching and utilizing the information, training, and funds available to this town and this office is a vital part of the responsibilities of a servant to the town. In my brief time researching thus far, there appears to be funding available at the state level through the Community Compact Cabinet to assist in IT-related upgrades, if needed, to modernize and simplify the process of this office as well as others at no added cost to the town taxpayer. Let's be real here. It's 2023 and we are still operating in the dark ages. It's time to upgrade the technology and bring Westport into the light. We as a town have to do better. I'm just one woman running for one office, but together we can make changes. Together we can improve efficiency, accessibility, transparency, and fiscal responsibility to all of us, the citizens of Westport. Now is the time to make a change and move Westport forward. So I humbly ask you, my friends, my family, and my community, for your vote on April 11th for town clerk. Thank you.
Donna is representing, and she's running unopposed for the Board of Health, but she still found time, a very family difficulty over the weekend here, or death in the family, to come before us this evening to talk about the Board of Health and her candidacy. So I appreciate it, Donna, please.
Good evening, everyone. A little education about the Board of Health. We're responsible for 3 areas impacting the health and well-being of members of our community: disease control and prevention, health and environmental protection, and promoting a healthy community. For the past 3 years, I have worked with board members Tanya Ryden, Phil Weinberg, and our public health director, Matt Armendo, on these 3 areas of responsibility. I hope to continue to work on this team effort and contribute to the goals of the Board of Health for the benefit of all Westport residents. I have supported and participated in our COVID vaccine clinics and have helped educate residents by writing articles for our Health Notes column published in the Shorelines. As a member of the current Board of Health, I fully support our efforts to address and push back on the Department of Environmental Protection's plan to require all residents to upgrade their septic systems to nitrogen-reducing technologies. I support the plan to apply for the 20-year permit, saving residents the expense of upgrading their systems. The work that the board has proactively done to help reduce nitrogen loading is working to achieve the goal of protecting the quality of our drinking water and watershed ecosystem. As a psychiatric mental health clinical nurse specialist and community advocate, I bring a different perspective to the Board of Health. My concern for the health and well-being of individuals and families has guided my clinical practice. That concern also extends to my role as a member of the Board of Health. Part of my effort to promote a healthy community includes addressing the importance of mental health as a public health issue, and I have even worked with the school department addressing some of those issues for our youth. In the past 2 years, I have organized several events during Mental Health Awareness Month, and am in the planning stages to do so again this May. I will also continue to push for education and outreach regarding public health issues, as well as address environmental issues that negatively impact the health and well-being of our residents and the value of our homes. Please vote for me so that I may continue to work to protect and promote the health and well-being of the Westport community. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call up the school committee and the constables, if you would, please. While they're coming up, I noticed a couple of people in the audience that if you have some questions, you might want to talk to them. Bob Dale, would you stand up, please? And Murray May. Those are two folks that are on Water and Sewer Committee in town, and there's been a lot of questions about that. This might not be the appropriate evening for it, but they're available. I'm filling time in as these other folks come in. But these are two gentlemen that certainly put a lot of time and effort, as Steve Willett and others have as well. But those folks have done a yeoman's job here in trying to help out and provide some direction for the town in that area. There's way over there, or you can walk right from there if you like, instead of climbing up. Okay. I'm going to start off, if we could, by the school committee. Evan, would you start off, please?
Hello, everyone. I first want to thank Tony, Westport Business to Business, Bay Coast Bank, and of course our school system for hosting us tonight. My name is Evan Jandro. I'm running for school committee in town. I work in public policy, so I have a lot of experience with policy analysis and working, on a lot of diverse issues, some of which pertaining to education. I'm also a UMass Dartmouth graduate and a proud Westport High School graduate as well. And I appreciate the opportunity to give back to the school system that provided so many opportunities for myself. There are two main areas of focus that I look at when running for this seat. One of them is funding. That's a challenge that's not necessarily unique to this community. A lot of school committees around the state and around the country face funding challenges. But I really want to look at it from the angle of increasing opportunities in terms of getting assistance from state aid, whether that's Chapter 70 funding or from other sources, and also grants. So increasing, those opportunities while also being mindful of taxpayers' dollars is very important. Another area of focus for me is increasing opportunities for our students. There are a lot of great programs right now happening in our school system. I know Superintendent Aubin has worked so hard implementing some of them on vocational programs and work study programs and internships. So there are a lot of opportunities for our students here, and a couple of them include the LEAP program, which was initiated recently, and that assists students in getting into high school and helping our retention rates, so it keeps students here locally. It also helps with our labor shortage problem, especially in our area, by helping students get placed into jobs in our community, which is a great way to give back to local businesses and to help with the labor shortage. So there are a lot of opportunities for us there, help our retention rates, increase our enrollment, increasing opportunities for students. And I look forward to the opportunity to serving our town in this capacity and to providing, a lot of chances for our students and investing in the future of our town. I would appreciate your support on April 11th. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Evan. Now we want to hear from the constables. And Marshall, I guess you're first up.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to first thank everyone for being here tonight and for Tony inviting me to be here and speak before you. I don't have a prepared speech. I'm going to talk to you straight off the cuff and from my heart. I've been a lifelong resident here in the town of Westport. I'm a graduate of the Westport schools, and my career has centered around law enforcement all my life. After I graduated from high school, I entered the Army, and I entered into a reserve component, and I was assigned to a military police CID, which is criminal investigation detachment. My military occupation was assistant criminal investigator. After I did my active duty tour, I came home and I entered college, and I got my degree in criminal justice. While I was in college, I started to work for the town as a reserve police officer. Once I graduated from school, I became a full-time officer. I served the town faithfully for 32 years full-time and an additional 8 years as reserve officer. I have 40 years of service with the town. After I retired, I also became a private investigator, and I held that private investigation license for quite a few years, but I gave it up just prior to becoming a town constable. I've been your town constable for the past 3 years. I've served in law enforcement faithfully, honestly, and have tried to always uphold the honor and respect that the townspeople have given me, and in the same manner. I hope that you will consider voting for me based on my experience, and that you trust that I'm doing the job that you expect from me. Thank you.
And the other candidate, there's actually 2 positions here, so we have 2 people running. Art Caesar.
Hello, my name is Arthur Caesar. I'd like to thank Tony and the Westport Business to Business for sponsoring this event tonight, and I thank all of you for being here to listen to us. I'm here to seek your vote. I'm entering if you see fit, I'm entering my 4th term as constable in Westport. I'm 85 years old, so trying to hold this about me to 3 minutes, Tony, might be difficult. I moved to Westport in 1973. I was born and brought up in New Bedford. After the military, I, like Marshall, went to UMass. I majored in business administration, marketing major. I have a story to tell you about the constable job. Marshall was what we call a cop. That came from constable on patrol way back when. I think the year was 1571 when the constables took over law enforcement in Massachusetts. Since moving to Westport, I've been very active in many organizations. I'm a 75-year-old veteran of the 75 years in the Boy Scouts. I was a scoutmaster several times of Troop 100 over at Our Lady of Grace Church. I coached baseball, Westport baseball, and when I first moved to town, there was a thing called Westport Youth Hockey, and I coached that as well. Both my sons are Eagle Scouts and have served well as volunteers. In my military service, I'm fortunate to serve 4 years in the United States Navy Seabees and 6 years in the United States Marine Corps. My volunteer activities include just about every veterans organization known to mankind. I'm a life member of the Vietnam Veterans of America. I'm a life member of the Marine Corps League. I belong to Chapter 207 in Westport here, Vietnam Vets. I'm proud to say that our organization has done over 3,000 funerals for the families of veterans. And I'm pleased to say that those of you who know me, you'll probably see me at Beech Grove sounding my trumpet, sounding taps. I've served on the Beach Committee for several years, and I was on the Board of Registrars for about 12 years until they kicked me off. They kicked me off because somebody found a rule that you couldn't be an elected constable and serve on the Board of Registrars after 12 years. But so be it. I had fun. We got a lot done. We did voter registrations over at the police substation, and several times they came into the high school to round up some 18-year-old kids and get them to register to vote and let them know how important it was to exercise their obligation. I'm retired from the Bristol County Sheriff's Department. I was a law enforcement deputy, and I see one of my sister officers sitting way up yonder there. She was a major. I was just a rank and file guy. The history of constables goes way, way back, as I mentioned earlier. At one time, in Massachusetts and many communities, the constable was the only law enforcement officer available anywhere. And somewhere I read where if the tax collector could not perform the duties of the tax collector, it was left to the constable in that town. Please, tax collector, don't quit. This is the first time I think, in the history of the town. You heard Marshall, he's a retired officer from Westport and a fine officer as well. It's the first time that the town of Westport has had two constables, both of which have been graduates of the Law Enforcement Academy. So you're in good hands with Marshall and I reach out and ask you once again for your vote on April 11th. Thank you so much. God bless for being here.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call up the library, people running for library trustees, planning board. I think John's here. And also, Shauna, would you mind coming up too as a third person? And we'll get right into the question after that. As they come up, they'll be coming up to the stage, and we'll go into that. If you have questions, be writing them down, because after we finish, we'll have an opportunity, these three people finish, you'll have an opportunity to question any of the folks that have spoke this evening, and we'll have some opportunities. Betty's going to be speaking as well, and some other folks. But I want to go through the questions of these folks. You see people coming in and out this evening. They're competing interests, like grandchildren that are playing basketball, both in Westport and in Tiverton and Dartmouth tonight, and others that are going on to other functions for the family. So that's part of it. You can't find a convenient night where everybody's going to be home and they can come to an activity. But we thought this was important. It is being taped. So if people have not been able to see this, they can see it on YouTube. I guess it's youtube.com, government TV, and you'll see all the pictures come up with the dates of the activities, and you can scroll it. If you don't like my speeches in between, you can just skip over them and go to the candidates if you want. So you can play around with it. It's on demand, so to speak. So I've stalled a little bit, and we're ready to go with our next group. And I guess the next one will be Paul from the Library Trustees.
Hello, I'm Paul Cabral. I'm running for the position on the Board of Trustees because I firmly believe in the mission of the library to provide services that advocate for our town. I had my speech all planned, but I guess I should have written it down. The services that the library provides are, oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking. All right, let me start this over again. All right. I'm running for the open position on the Board of Trustees for the library because I strongly believe in the quality that the library provides, the quality service that the library provides to our town. I also believe that the libraries brings a great deal of benefit to all of us. I'm embarrassed. You're okay. All right. Third shot will do it. All right. So much for memorizing. I should have written it. All right. Once again, hi. I'm running for the open seat on the Board of Trustees for the library because I strongly believe in the quality of the services that the library provides to our town. I also believe that the benefit and the value that the library provides is enormous to all of us in our community. I've been on this board previously, and I welcome the opportunity to rejoin it. What I've also done is that I've had a career working for the Commonwealth of Mass for 28 years. I've worked in human services, and the skills that I've used in my career with the state apply to the board. The skills that I have, the skills that I've worked on include contract management, procurement, and working effectively on committees and teams. Okay, that's what I was hoping to get out. So, I request your vote, and thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay, Polly Dooley is not going to be able to be with us as another conflict, but we do have a third person who's running, and it says on your program Paula, but it's really Polly, right?
My name is Paula, but I go by Polly.
Polly, so here's Polly.
Hello, thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Polly Feidelberg, and I am running for a seat on the Library Trustee Board. The board oversees the library functions and listens to the concerns of the library staff, town officials, and the needs of the town residents. The library is an equalizer, a hub for self-education, and therefore plays a critical role in the preparation of meeting the challenges of the future for all those wanting to self-improve. I was born and raised in our neighbor city, Fall River. My husband John and I raised our family there. We now live here in Westport with our youngest daughter, Paulina. They're both here tonight. Our son, John, lives in New York City. Our daughter, Hannah, and her husband, Jeremy, and their son, Luke, live in Stamford, Connecticut. And our second son, Ben, and his girlfriend, Hannah, live in Fall River. Currently, I take courses at UMass Dartmouth, and I am closing in on finishing a program I started many years ago. I have used the wonderful Kearney Library at UMass, the Westport Library, and the Fall River Library, and have obtained books from throughout the sales system while working on this degree. Libraries are essential. The sociology and anthropology courses have fostered a desire to me to be engaged civically. I will be invested in the needs and interests of all residents in Fall River in relation to the services of the library. I would ask each of you here tonight to consider voting for me on April 11th. I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, now we have a planning board member who's running unopposed but never gives up an opportunity to address a group if they're available. So I'd like to introduce John. Mr. Mayor, we like to call him actually.
Thank you, Tony. And thank you to Westport Business to Business and Bay Coast for sponsoring this. Thank you all for coming out. I've known Tony quite a while. He and I and some others in 2000 founded CMAP, which is still around helping agriculture, which is, of course, important to Westport. I'm not a lifelong resident of Westport. Lori and I moved here about 11 years ago, and I've been on the planning board 5 or 6 or 7 years, and we have a great team, and I want everyone to know how fortunate Westport is. I'm the weak link on the planning board, but I nevertheless ask you for your vote. I'm just the cheerleader for our team. Jim Whiten is the chair. He's there in the orange parka, and Bob Daler, whose name has been mentioned, is the vice chair. And Manny Soares, who's you've already heard from, running for select board, is on the team and brings a lot of experience. And Mark Schmid is the fourth member. It's a very well-balanced, with incredible expertise. And we have a great staff, Michael Burris, Nadine Castro, Amy Messier, and the town is very well served by this board. And we work closely with the zoning board. I see Jerry here. Our recent town planner, Jim Hartnett, graduated to be your town administrator, so I just want to tell you how well served you are, not by me necessarily, but by all the others on the planning board and planning department. And our purpose is, in short, change is inevitable in Westport, and that's a good thing. But what we have to do is to take all the laws that you have passed and revised and apply them to the change that happens. I mean, last night there were, 100 people we meet twice a week, debating change that would happen as a developer said, this is what I want to do with my property. And so we take that idea and these laws and try and figure out what's good for the land, what's good for the neighbors, and what's good for the developer, and what's legal. And we try and do the right thing. And usually people get angry, which is why I was hoping someone else was going to run. Is it too late? Does anyone want to do that? Because if so, I could get some free Tuesday nights back with Lori, but I think it's too late, so here I am. At any rate, it's a wonderful job, and it's an important job, and you have some very good people doing it. I'm also the planning board designee to the Climate Resilience Committee, which looks at how climate change is affecting all of us in Westport, and what are the impacts and what do we do about it. We met with the Environment Committee Club here at the high school today, because those are the folks, not people my age, the people here in school, who are really going to be impacted, and that's very encouraging, those students here. So, at any rate, I'm running for re-election. I'm unopposed, so I expect it will be a close election, and therefore I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Shauna, I think was around here. Shauna's going to come up. When she's coming up, I want to recognize Karen Rouse. Would you stand up? Karen Rouse is the chair of the Finance Committee, and if you haven't met her, it's a lot of hours that the Finance Committee puts in every year to try to come up with something for town meeting that makes sense to the public and is fair to the town and the employees in the town. So appreciate it, Sharon. Jim Whiten, I apologize. I didn't recognize you before. Jim, stand up. The chair of the planning board for many, many years and does a great job in many areas. Right next to him is Dick Brewer from the Board of Selectmen and his wife. And I see another Finance Committee member. Please stand up. Yep. And I see Jeff back there. Jeff's on the Landing Commission. I'm saying this, if you get any griefs, when you have question and answers, you can talk to these people as well. Please, Jeff from the Landing Commission and Beach Committee. Are you, anybody else? Did I miss somebody? I'm trying to look out among the crowd here. Oh, Chair of the Board of Health, Tanya, please stand up so people can. Another Board of Health member here. And if you notice, we have one other, we're through the candidates, except we have one that right now there are no candidates, and that's the Commissioner of Trust Funds. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but it's a good way to start if you want to run for an elected office. If you get about 10 or 15 people, you're going to be the next commissioner. Okay? So it's a way to start. Think about it. I want to turn it over now because we have one question in addition to the candidates, and that's a question on the ballot that was a little confusing in the past. I'm not going to read the question again, but I'm going to turn it over to the chair of the Board of Selectmen, Shauna, and Shauna's going to explain that in a little bit more detail. Then we'll go on to the rest of the program with questions.
Good evening. I'm Shauna Schufelt, she, her, and I'm chair of the Select Board. I've been on the Select Board for 7 years. I was on the Finance Committee 5 years before that, so I'm hoping I can help you make sense of the question that's on the ballot. The question, I want to just acknowledge the question is confusing. When you read it, it's confusing, and I get a lot of questions about why don't you make it simpler? Why don't you reword it? And the answer is the law. It's the law. We have to have debt exclusions have to be written in the way that they're written. We've done everything we can to try to make it more accessible, but it's the law. We can't change it right now. But let me just talk a little bit about what the question is all about. So we have the Diamond School Building Project that was overwhelmingly supported by Westport. It's going to replace the Diamond Vocational High School with a new modern facility that's been designed and configured to support vocational education into the future. And I just want to really emphasize that this is not just about a handful of students that go from Westport to learn a few skills. This is really about providing tradespeople into our region that are going to support our economic development. Vocational programming is very important and has been enthusiastically supported by Westport for a very long time. At a previous town meeting, voters committed Westport to participating in this project and for paying our share. I want to be crystal clear. Westport has already agreed to pay our portion of this project. This question is not asking, should we do this project or not? This question is saying, where should the money come from when we have to pay the bill? So, because it's a numbers question, I just want to talk clearly about the numbers are. We expect the Westport contribution to be about $450,000 per year once we hit the full bonding. So it won't be that high until a couple years in and we reach the full bond rate, but it's $450,000. So what this ballot question is saying, a yes vote means that we could increase the tax levy by that amount to pay for that specific project. So dollars and cents, a $450,000 increase in the levy limit is about $11 per $100,000 of valuation. So if you have a home that's valued at $400,000, the tax increase to you would be $44. So this is what we're talking about. $11 per $100,000 would be the tax increase. But it is a tax increase. There's no question about it. That's specifically what a yes vote means. A no vote, now remember, we're already committed to paying that $450,000. So a no vote means, no, we don't want to increase our taxes. We would instead prefer to reduce services that are available to the taxpayers. I don't know the exact number, but if you think about $450,000, it's about 10 employees, give or take. And this would be in the school department and the town department. So if you vote no, what you mean is, no, we don't want to raise our taxes. Please cut 10 people from the budget. Please remove those services from the town of Westport. I would encourage you to please consider voting yes. I don't think the people in the town meeting that really supported this project meant to hurt the town. I think they were trying to improve our communities. So please vote yes. I'm happy to talk more later. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Okay, I think we're pretty well on schedule now. We're going to have an opportunity for question and answers. But I want to make a couple of comments. And I don't usually take a stand on issues, those folks that know me. But I think it's appropriate. I see Jim Mullen sitting in the back of the room next to the vice president of Bay Coast Bank. And Jim and I, shared many years at UMass Dartmouth together. and we're both retired now. But hearing UMass come up time and time again this evening, and even hearing the law school come up time and time again this evening, it's really nice. But we're sitting in a building that before it was a high school, a beautiful high school. If you haven't seen it, get around. I'm sure the superintendent will welcome you anytime it's convenient for you. Check it out. You paid for it. But before it was a high school, we had a middle school here. And before it was a middle school, it was a farm. And after the farm, there was a family that actually had a sand and gravel operation here. There's a lot of history there. But some of those folks that lived on Old County Road, which is what you're on now, would talk about what we're doing tonight. And there'd be kind of three topics as we get into question and answers. I want to make sure that we're respectful and civil, but also I want to kind of pay respects to those folks that came before us on this ground that we're sitting on and talking to one another tonight about. And those folks, fishermen, farmers, many middle-class people, maybe having a tough time, but having a better life for their children. And I think sitting here tonight, we hope we can have a better life for our children and our grandchildren. But they always come back to three statements, basically. Fees, or fines, if you would. Taxes, and as our planning board, John Bullard mentioned, change. But they would describe them and warn us about that in a way that, I'm halfway joking about this, but it's kind of how they described it. They describe a fine as a tax because you did something wrong. They would describe a tax really as a fee because you were doing something positive. And change being inevitable. They would say, in the old days it had better meaning, well, maybe, but don't expect much if you're at a vending machine. So the change from a vending machine or the fees and the taxes are really determined by the taxpayer and the people that serve us. And that's not easy. It's easy to criticize, it's easy to second guess, but you should feel very comfortable with the people that are representing you. I see a lady sitting down here who worked for the assessors for many, many years and finally retired, Sharon Potter. Dedicated folks like that in our community, and we should be very proud of them. We can differ on issues, we can talk about those, but we have some candidates that should be applauded for stepping forward in this day and age with their busy lives and saying, I want to give back to my community. Everybody who's running, every candidate who's running, and maybe even who's ever out there that's going to fill in for a commissioner of trust funds, you should be commended as well, because you'll go home and start thinking about that position. I want to thank you. And I want to give a hand to all the candidates this evening. I want to entertain questions, and I want to allow some time for Betty, has a presentation as well. But let's do the questions for the candidates first, because I think there are a couple of them that actually have to go to some basketball games for grandchildren. Okay? Questions on any of the candidates, Board of Selectmen, we'll do any of them. Any topics that you see on your on your paper here, anything that's raising. Before we start, let me mention two more areas. We're going to have two additional events, nights, that will be scheduled probably from 7 to 8:30. One will be on March 28th, and the other will be April 20th. And we'll address potential overrides. We'll address if there's some planning on what we do with the school and disposition of the high school and so forth. Those things will be discussed at that point. That's not necessarily for this evening, because if we started that, we're going to be here till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or 12 o'clock. But we're going to have opportunities before the town meeting to address some of those issues. And we're going to dedicate some time. Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, other folks in town that want to participate in that, we'll talk about that. But let's address, Shauna, you had a hand up first. Question?
When you're ready for questions.
Yes, go.
So I have a question for the three select board candidates. I wanted to specifically know if you support the proposed override, and if so, why or why not?
If anybody wants their answer, you can go right down there if you'd like. We're short. We have other activities here in the school this evening, so we're short on microphones. And that's the reason that we just have the two that we allotted for this purpose. So any of the candidates, if they want to, and by the way, candidates, you can ask questions as Shauna just did, of folks, not just candidates, but if the candidates want to ask the audience, you're welcome to do that as well. Steve?
How you doing? Yes, I support it. I'm a tough sell, but yeah, I think we should do it the way that Shauna lined it up at our meeting. I think we should start off at the $1 million mark and work our way up. And the current game plan is to utilize that so it lasts 4 or 5 years. It's necessary to keep positions. Unfortunately, we're having a tough time keeping people right now. The cost of anything is ridiculous right now. So we absolutely need it to survive. Everybody in here knows we get by on Scotch tape and stuff like that to keep things going, and we really got to catch up. We need to maintain our employees and address the needs of the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris and then Manny, is that Nancy back there too from the school committee? Nancy, please stand up, chair of the Westport School Committee. Nancy Stanton Cross. Sorry, Nancy, I didn't see you here before.
So I am inclined to support an override with the caveat that I want to know where every single dime is going, and I want to know what the long-term plan for any increased funding is. I see the reports, and for 3 years, maybe 5 years if we're lucky. To me, I would like to see some more long-term planning involved to make sure that we don't have to come back around in another 3 to 5 years. So the bottom line, I'm inclined to support it as long as we know exactly where each dime is going and what the plan is for long term. So.
Okay, Manny?
I most definitely support it with a yes. Having attended Diamond myself and operated a small business for the last 35 years and seen other small businesses in our community use the resources that come out of this school, there's no choice but to vote for it. Knowing that the fiscal condition of our town, and we'd have to lose services if we didn't vote yes and do an override, I think we don't have any choice. And I'm sure the taxpayers are going to agree with us.
Question, comments, anybody else? Okay, I'm going to kind of take the liberty of asking Betty, why don't you start heading up here, and you can speak a little bit, and then we can still continue with the questions. I only have this hall for another 30 minutes, Betty, and I have to pay time and a half after that. So, no, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. But people, want to kind of move it along as best we can, too, so. I was only kidding, Mr. Superintendent. Please, Betty.
So my name is Betty Slade. I was just set up for this. It was interesting, the question about the override. I wanted everybody to know that we have formed an override ballot question committee. It's fundraising, but its purpose is really to educate the public, to allow people to ask questions, to put answers from various government officials on this website. And you got this yellow sheet. Everybody, I hope you got it. We today have launched our website, and we'll talk about the deficit and the potential cuts and how these funds will be used. So some of the things that Manny just spoke of, we will be talking about. We also have a Facebook page, and we hope that you look at that. The addresses are on this yellow sheet, so take it home. But you can also probably just look up Yes Westport, and it'll come up. So I hope that people do look at this website. They do look at the town website, where the budgets are already posted and where new changes that are going to occur will be posted. We also have a article. It's more like a research study about the potential for the override that was convened by Al Lees. and that's on our website also. It's also on the town website. So there's information out there, and we hope that you take a look at it.
I hope you know that this is a lady who's responsible for all the work that we're seeing in the cemeteries in the last, I don't know how many years now, but we've had stones that go back. Our old homestead, which is my grandfather's there on Bain Road where the high school is, that goes back to, what, Betty, the 1600s, I think, 1700s? Yeah, and the stones were falling apart and so forth, and she's recruited some other folks from town. I don't see Todd Baptiste or his crew, but they've been involved in it. It's been a community project, and I get calls from people in Maine that come down and visit now, and they say, wow, what a difference you guys have really put into this. Yep. She needs volunteers, she's saying, so. But a great job, and we appreciate that as a community. Any other questions? Anybody watch Channel 4? See Channel 4 last week, and Superintendent of the Schools in Westport's on Channel 4? I got a question. What's he doing on Channel 4? Tom, can you explain that as Superintendent of Schools? Tom, use the mic.
I thought I was going to use my teaching voice, but so I received a call from Tiffany Chan from WBZ. As some of you may or may not know, the school committee directed me to pursue a lawsuit against some of our social media companies. It's been pretty well established that many of the mental health issues that are plaguing not just our kids but our communities in large part are connected to social media use. And so we know that there's been a lot of research about the algorithms that were created, and we're seeing these problems in a very bad way. I don't know if you saw the story, but it was mind-boggling when Ms. Chan was actually speaking to a couple of our students, and if you didn't see our students speak on that, I really recommend that you do. Our students have been punching above their weight a very long time. I've been around education for over 35 years, and I got to tell you something. I am incredibly proud of the students here in Westport, the work that they're doing, the teachers and the staff. We have some tremendous students. And, off camera, one of the things that they spoke about was, during the pandemic, the kids would be on the phone, and they wouldn't realize what time it was until they heard the birds chirping, realizing that they had been up all night. If you know anything about addiction, this is clearly addictive behavior, and it's having residual effects here in the community and certainly in our school community. This is why the school committee has directed me to work on a number of different initiatives. Thanks to the taxpayers of Westport, we were able during the pandemic to institute a one-to-one technology to student program to make sure that we could have a continuity of education. I'm fiercely proud of the fact that this district in 2020 August was able to do what most communities didn't do, is open up their schools. And we did that because of the work and commitment of our professionals. But we have a number of issues that are coming. I know Mayor Bullard spoke about change. I can tell you that I wish I could describe to you in a very short period the type of change that's going on, but I can just share one very quick one with you. In 2016, the number of students who were diagnosed as autistic went somewhere around 1 to 150. Today, in 2023, that number is 1 in 44. These students need tremendous services, and our staff needs to be prepared in order to service these students. There was a time when people thought that autistic students had cognitive difficulties. Well, in fact, only 1 in 3 do. These are students that can be very productive members of society, and with the support of our community and the understanding and patience that comes with that, I think we can go a long way. We are doing tremendous things here. We are working with the farmers on a farm-to-school program in an effort to provide better food for our students and to provide a more consistent pipeline in terms of supply chain. As we know, during the pandemic, many of us had to stock up on things like toilet paper and other things like that we were trying to make sure that we could get. Well, it's no different with the food that we have. And so, here we are in a right-to-farm community, and we felt it was extremely important to build that connection with our farm community, so we're doing that right now. we have a literacy initiative that is going to be very robust over the next few years. And I really want to thank all of the volunteers. Carol Bonner has organized a number of people to actually come into the schools and work with our students and our staff in an effort to help improve the literacy situation that we have going on right now. One of the things I'm most fiercely proud about is the fact that starting in the September of 2024, September of 24 school year, for the first time ever, Westport will be introducing a neo-technical educational program to our students. As we were discussing the Diamond vote, I will tell you that I was the superintendent at Diamond who actually wrote the statement of interest that got accepted by the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And I was very proud to write that. And once they shut my email off and kindly told me to leave, I landed in Westport, and I couldn't be happier. Starting in September, and I really want you to pay attention to this, we are going to be able to provide our students with what I think is going to be a very robust and a very unique way to teach technical education. Schools like Diamond are extremely important. The problem that we have facing us today is when you look at the statistics, only 1 in 3 students who graduate from a vocational school are going to enter that trade. And there's a lot of reasons for it that I wouldn't get into today. That's not going to solve our labor shortages. Right now, we have baby boomers who are retiring left and right, and these labor shortages need to be met. And the way that we're going to do that in Westport is to open up our students' ability using augmented reality. And again, thank you to both Senator Rodrick, Representative Schmid, and the Greater Fall River Development Corporation for the generous grants that we've received. We've received $440,000 in grants, and we'll be receiving 48 laptops using augmented reality in an effort to teach technical education to our kids in Westport who don't have access to it. This is just a small number of the many things that we have going on here. So I ask you to continue to stay tuned to us, provide us your feedback. I can't thank, and there's so many of you here tonight that I've worked closely with, whether it's members of the Finance Board, the Select Board, or volunteers. So I just want to let you know that we're punching above our weight in Westport, and we're going to continue to do that for the students and the community. And finally, I would say, in April, I'll be celebrating my 25th year here in Westport. I'm a transplant from the Bogle Hill area in Fall River, and I am extremely proud to be your superintendent and a resident of Westport. So thank you very much, and I'm available for any questions that people may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, a show of hands, how many have never been into the Council on Aging building? Have never been in? Show of hands if you've never been in. Not many. I challenge you folks that raise your hand, you might want to go sometime. You pick the day, you pick the time, but you'll be impressed with what's happening. Tom just mentioned about some of the programs we have, and especially the special needs and some of the areas that maybe weren't addressed years ago. But we're doing a good job in our town, and because of that, we have more people that move to our town for those services. On the other end, we have a number of folks that, I'm too young, but they tell me about this. They attend Council on Aging functions, like daycare centers, a social daycare. It's a tremendous aid to folks within our community. And we have a percentage of our population that's aging. Now, we could debate whether we should or shouldn't, but we do have a Council on Aging program, and I happen to think it's a great one. But we don't have the capacity. And we're not going to have the capacity for the next 24 months or the next 5 years. We have to address that somehow. If you go there, I think you'll understand pretty quickly. And for some cases, when we were growing up, we worried about getting somebody to take care of our children when we worked a second job or sometimes even a first job. And getting home from school, and the library, another place if you haven't been, you should in our town, helped out in those capacities over the years and stuff too. But there are a lot of folks now where you get to my age and you may have some parents, they need some opportunities for socialization. And that Council on Aging building has done a tremendous job. I know the Board of Selectmen and other groups in town have been very supportive, tried to help them. But it's something that I think we need to address as a community. And again, I'll get off the soapbox here, but you might want to take a look at it. I don't know what the answer is. My dad would, live till he was 94, and I don't think he went in but maybe twice because he said that's where the old people go. And so he didn't want to get involved in it. but maybe that philosophy is changing a little bit because of all kinds of reasons. But as a community, I think we need to step up somehow and address, if we are going to support it, how are we going to support it, and where do we go with that? So any other questions? I'm going to wrap this up. We're on a time schedule. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, come up to the, by all means. Yep. When they're doing that, I see a gentleman over here. John, would you stand up? John Alden. I'm going to embarrass you. John Alden is the person who does community events in Westport, everything Westport. It's really kind of a substitute for newspapers, daily newspapers that we don't have in our community as much anymore. And we really appreciate it, John. How many years have you been doing this now? Almost 30 years. Now, he may be the reason that we don't have the daily newspapers anymore. I don't know, but it's working. And we talked about social media and some of the negative parts of it, but he's providing such a service to our community through those two forms of communication. So thank you, John, and appreciate you being here tonight. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I have a question regarding the Diamond School funding.
Yes.
As a person who was not confused, and I do have the wording of the ballot question, there was no dollar amount on that ballot, and I do believe that by having no dollar amount, it's a loophole that could be filled at a later date when more funding is required. Because right now, there is a potential amount or an expected amount, but no actual amount. And I'm concerned about that, because just like with this facility, we find out at a later date that what was expected or potential tax increases, we didn't have any actual amounts. So my concern is not confusion, it's an actual amount that I'm concerned about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Shauna, you can, but before Shauna even gets up there, I'll take a little bit of a stab at that, too.
I have another question, too, after she answers.
What's that? She's going to answer.
Yeah, but I have another, after.
Oh, you're still asking the question?
Pertaining to the override. After.
Okay. Yep, well, Shauna, and I'm going to speak to that a little bit, too, but I'll bow to the Chair of the Board of Selectmen.
So she's right, there's no dollar amount on it. We're prohibited by law from putting a dollar amount on it. The primary reason that there's not a dollar amount on it has to do with the bonding, right? So we know the cost of the project. The cost of project is available. The cost of project is governed by a lot of factors. So we do know the upper limit of the cost of the project itself. But what we don't know is how much the interest is going to be on the bonding. She mentioned this project. This project was funded by a debt exclusion. It's true, it did not have a number on it because we are prohibited from putting the number on it. But I want to say is that this project came in under budget, and this project came in with a lower than anticipated interest rate because we were able to we thread the needle of getting lower construction costs before COVID went up and low interest rates before the interest rates went up. So she's absolutely right that we did not have a dollar amount, but also the project came in less than what we told the voters. I have no reason to believe that the Diamond project would be any different.
Okay, I'll give you a chance, but I'd like to speak to that as well. And I want to take everybody back to the 1970s. I want to take when we first opened up the middle school that's no longer here, and some of the buildings that we did after that, like the fire station, police station. In that era, we didn't have as many attorneys. Now, maybe that's a negative with the school of law, but I think it's going to be a positive with the school of law as a public school of law. But many attorneys now have changed the regulations at the state level. And if you were involved in that era, I know Jerry Catino was back in that era, it's pretty simple. When you did a major construction, a capital, you said the source of funding, either through borrowing or through taxation. But because of attorneys, now you can't just ask a simple question in 2 sentences. You got to do 12 sentences and have 5 attorneys look at it, change it around, and when you look at it, you say, well, this isn't what we're trying to do. But you're limited in what you can do because of this legal aspect, legalese, if you would. It gets ridiculous. And again, I apologize the editorial on it, but it does. And so what's happened, all those major construction costs, capital costs, are usually done through borrowing. They're not done through the operating budget. Typically, we don't even buy a police cruiser through the operating budget. We look at free cash or other, in the town over the years, other sources of fund, one-time funds. Capital, because of the expense of it, we always try to do long-term borrowing, same way you would do on a mortgage on a house. We did it on the police station, we did it on the fire station. We did it on the fire station, if you're old enough, on Briggs Road. We built that one. So those kind of expenditures, because of the amount of them, and because they are capital, we tend not to put them in the operating budget. In this particular case, the wording of it was debatable, but it was handled by attorneys, and I know the Board of Selectmen got involved in it, I know the town administrator did. They tried to correct some of that to make it easier, but this is the way it came out. So now we're trying to correct that, because right now the principal and interest is coming out of an operating budget. And in a municipality, that normally would be funding, and it normally would be a long-term funding because of the amount of money and the impact that principal and interest would have on an operating budget. Operating budgets are salary, wages, expenses. Yearly stuff, not long-term commitments. So that's how it was. You can argue whether you should or not, but that's the history of it. And again, a lot of the stuff that we see, even this article that we have now in Diamond, how it's worded, it's better, but it's not really the way I think it should be. But again, I'm not an attorney, but I'm dangerous enough to speak like one. So yes, ma'am.
Okay, I guess my question was twofold, because back when we funded this project, it was for grades 5 through 12, and there were no exclusions. Vocational students were not excluded from that vote. So when the town allocated and approved of $97 million for this project, it was assumed, or anyway, I assumed, that all grades 5 through 12 would be included, that vocational students included. So I guess that's why when I see no dollar amount on the ballot for a Diamond expenditure, I have to question why weren't vocational students included in this facility.
Sure. Let me answer that, and if the superintendent wants to speak, he can. I can help you with that. And again, the gray hair, you go through a lot of these things over the years. Diamond will be on the ballot, and it will be on your allocations at town meeting. That'll be the operating budget that we just spoke of. What we're doing separately on this one is the capital piece, and that's why that's separate. It's kind of, if you look at mortgage, principal and interest, that's borrowed, the other is not. Now, people will say, you're borrowing, it's a debt exclusion, it's over 2.5%, they're right. Okay, I'm not arguing that at all. So, but that's how the process is, not only in Westport, but it's done pretty much throughout the state. Very few communities would do a major capital outlay and take the principal interest each year out of the operating budget. It just, you kind of wouldn't do that in your own household. You'd try to look at how you're going to pay if you're buying a car or those kinds of activities. You go to a borrowing situation. Typically, you wouldn't have the cash to do that unless you spread it over time. There's short-term borrowing and long-term borrowing. I'm looking for Susan Brayton, who's the treasurer. She could tell you that. I don't see her here right now, so... but that's the answer to that question. So in the Diamond situation, we have students each year that go to Diamond. We'll continue to have students each year going to Diamond. That's just a small portion of what we're talking about in voting for the construction of Diamond. And it's a small percentage. The city of Fall River has most of it. We have a small percentage. Somerset has a small percentage, and Swansea. The rest of it's the city of Fall River. And our percentage is 5-7%. The contract initially was, I think, 5% for those communities. It's up to close to 10%. Over the years, we've got a few more because there's a lot of people who would like to go to vocational education, especially in the early 1990s and that era. But that's how it came about. And what we're talking about now, we planned on a school that would be long-term for the community. I'm on the building committee, so that's why I'm kind of feeling a little bit passionate about that. It wasn't easy. And if you look at the expenses of other towns, it's very expensive to build a middle school and high school. We were able to accomplish that, and we also were able to accomplish bringing in students in different wings. So down the road, if you have to balance it off a little differently, you can still do it in the building. You have like 4 buildings in one if you would, but move some of the grades around if necessary. When I was a student, I went to Westport High School, and I was a 7th grader, an 8th grader. So we did it at Westport High School. We're doing it in a different way now. 5th and 6th graders right now are in that building. It may be down the road, based on population of those grades, that they might switch it around a little bit. The students don't really see one another in the daytime. The 5th graders aren't with the 12th graders. They're in different areas of the building. They use the same cafeteria, they use the same auditorium. If you haven't seen those, you should see them. But we try to do economies of scale with it. So it is a little different, and not all vocational students get into Diamond. And our superintendent has worked, I know personally because I've talked to some of the businesses that he's worked with. He's worked with partnerships and work-study programs and all kinds of activities of providing opportunities for them. So I think as a public education facility, we have a superintendent that's reaching out to those communities and going to do that. And maybe what we did in Diamond 5 years ago won't be the same as Diamond does now in going forward. And our public education is going to change as well. Enough said on that. Anybody else wants to talk about it? You're welcome to.
Can I just address that?
Shauna?
So just to the point she made, first of all, no one ever said that we were replacing vocational education in Westport with the new school building. We have been participating in a regional agreement for the vocational schools for many years. No one ever suggested that we would not be continuing our participation with Diamond. So that was not part of it. But during the building of the school and the design of the school, we in fact did account for adding, I was on the school building committee too. We did account for trying to provide some vocational services. We made sure that the boat building room was in there. The original plans called for a child care program, which has been changed around. You just heard the superintendent talk about the flexible space. We have a community television studio that was out there. So it was never ever said or intended to be a replacement for Diamond. We're trying to enhance the opportunities that are available to the students, and I think we met that responsibility of the community very well.
By the way, the building committee of this school, 12, 15 people sitting and dealing with these issues. One of them, and I know it's out there because people ask me all the time, how can you be on the building committee and not plan an office for the superintendent of schools? What were you thinking of? Well, if you look at the minutes, we had a lot of debate on that, and I was in a minority. I wanted to have that part of the building. We weren't going to get reimbursed for it. That's why we didn't do it. We wanted to stay on budget, and we felt there were other sources for the superintendent. But I built other schools myself, and we put them in there. We haven't got reimbursed for it, but to me, it was less expensive to keep it in the building, even if it cost you a little bit more, than build a separate building later on to accommodate them. But the majority of people, and I respect that, okay, there were only about 2 or 3 other people that felt the way I did on that committee. The majority of people felt we have enough resources in the town to deal with that issue. So that's why we went that route. We're at 8:30, and I promised we would finish on time, but that doesn't mean we can't stop. I'll give you one last, please wrap it up as fast as you can.
I just want to wrap this up. I just want to point out and emphasize, number one, vocational students were not excluded from the $97 million that was appropriated for this facility. And number two, no dollar amount on the ballot means that there could be a loophole that needs to be filled later on when more money is required, because we're not being told an actual amount that will be required for the new school in Diamond. Now, I also have one more question, because you brought up operating budgets.
Sure.
I'd like to know what was expected when the campground funding was voted for in a town meeting in 2019 for debt inclusion instead of an exclusion, which, unless you can correct me if I'm wrong, that meant skimming off of operating budgets within the town, which of course would potentially cause a hardship within the town's operating budget.
Okay, let me wrap it up if I could. I
Okay.
think I got it. You
You know,
asked the question.
operating budget.
Let me explain. It wasn't an operating budget. It was short-term bond. They were bonding for it.
campground, for the
The
campground.
campground is what I'm referring to, ma'am. Yes. So we can
A debt
continue on
inclusion.
individually. I want to wrap this up, but I
A
can
debt
explain
inclusion.
that. The campground, and others can too, if other people want to talk about the purchase of the campground. I don't have any skin in that game necessarily, but I think I should respond as a taxpayer. The campground the purchase of the campground, there was heavy debate on whether we should do that initially when we purchased this building and maybe design things a little bit differently. The consensus of opinion was at that time not to do it. since that time, the consensus of opinion is to purchase it, and that's what they did. The town didn't do it out of an operating budget. I think they're looking at different ways of handling it now. Other people could speak to that, but it was a borrowing situation. And that's the best I can say about it. We're not closing the debate. You're certainly welcome to talk about it, but the people that need to go and have other commitments, I appreciate you coming this evening, and we will have 2 others that won't be in this format. It'll be more of a debate on the issues, so it'll give people that have questions on both sides of it opportunities to speak. This was more of meeting the candidates and addressing what the candidates had to offer in those particular positions. Thank you for your attendance. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you. You're welcome to stay around a little bit. If you stay a little bit longer, you can help us clean up. Thank you.